My parents went to the East in 1954, before the wall was built, and I was born in the West. But then when I was 6 weeks old, I was brought to the East.
And you tell stories about how, even at a very young age, 3, 4, 5, whatever it was, you were appreciating the difference of where you were living compared to what was going on in the West. You would get what we now call care packages, food packages, and the food was real and the coffee smelled like coffee and everything seemed kind of natural. Can you describe that to me?
Yes, we were quite lucky because our family sent us packages nearly every week, and they smelled like the West.
Smelled like the West.
The stuff from the East smelled more like cleaning, detergent, and the stuff from the West was more colorful and smelled better. And I suffered a bit during my life in East Germany that things were quite gray and not so aesthetic. And in my book, I write that maybe my love for colorful clothes is due to the fact that in the East everything was very gray. But despite all the restrictions, it was a happy childhood. And I also noted that in the West, not everything was perfect either. And this is why, after the wall came down, I could go to the West with quite a lot of confidence.
You also seem to have been aware at the time that life was a delicate balance. There were things that you just could not say outside of the family home. You tell the story of how even talking to your friends on the phone, your mother would come and tell you, be careful what you say on the phone because the Stasi, the secret police, might be listening to that. Did that register with you at the time that you were living in this effectively police state and that these restrictions and this was a danger existed and this was a dangerous place to live?
It was not dangerous in every minute. I also write that I was quite careless sometimes and ended up in certain dangerous situations. But I'm very grateful to my parents. They managed to provide us a safe space at home. We had friends and we knew that we could speak frankly and openly with our friends. But we were careful when people asked us things in school, when they tried to trick us into saying something we shouldn't say. And I learned that very early in my childhood.
Describe the kind of delicate balance, the tightrope that you had to walk while growing up here.
Yes, of course. The fact that I came from a pastor's family was something special. And this is why, even though my father was classified as a rather leftist politically, it was clear that we had a certain distance from the regime. But on the other hand, my parents made sure that we could develop freely and that we could also develop our own will and our own ideas. And I was interested in organizing activities. And this is why I found my way, almost like a ski slalom racer. I made my way through the different poles of the regime. I was not an activist.
But how did you do that? You say it was like a slalom course that you were skiing at the time. How did you do that becoming famously indoctrinated?
Of course, I always had spiritual input from my parents from the West. I had Western clothes, Western books, and I always knew that there was something else that fascinated me more than the East German state. There were many people who thought the same way I did. I always wanted to get to my limits. That was difficult. Every day was a new adventure. But it was possible, and this is why I studied physics. I would not have studied physics in the West, I think. But I studied physics because the East German ideology was not able to bend physics. Gravity is gravity.
Do you recall what your emotions were at the time when the wall went up and also when it went down? Did you immediately see the problems, the terror, the restrictions that the wall represented when it went up? And can you describe what you felt in that famous period in 1989 when it crumbled?
In 1961, when I was a child, I was just about to start school, and I remember that my grandma, who was living in East Berlin, bought cigarettes in the West right before the wall was built. That was already prohibited, actually. I remember the sense of doing something forbidden.
And you weren't supposed to do that, right?
When the wall came down, I was 35 and I was living in Berlin. So that was really an undescribable emotion. And the 9th of November at night, I went to Bernauer Straße and crossed to the west. And I had to get used to it for years and years. When I crossed at Brandenburg Gate from the east to the west, I had a certain feeling in my stomach. I was really happy that this was possible again.
Does it still do that to you, or has that kind of
Es
passed?
ist jetzt etwas normaler geworden.
It has become more normal now, but I will always remember and will always feel in my heart that there was part of my life when I was so incredibly lucky, like so many people. And how many people who went to the streets to fight in East Germany could not experience that. And that has always made me happy. And this made me also willing to accept further changes in my life.
Fröhlich gemacht.